Cushing's Bookshelf, Episode 10, A Season in Hell by Arthur Rimbaud. And welcome back to Cushing's Bookshelf, the show where every week I go to my bookshelf, obviously, pull a title off, and tell you what I think about it. And this week we have this book by Arthur Rimbaud, the 19th century French poet, called A Season in Hell. And there is a preface to this book by Patti Smith of punk fame. And apparently she admires Rimbaud quite a bit. And so that's why she wrote the preface. So far, I'm only about 20 pages into this book, which is a very thin book, I should say. It's like about 100 pages all told. And what can I say about it? If you like pessimism, if you like sort of poetic descriptions of pessimism or poetic descriptions of the experience of the dark night of the soul, you may enjoy this book. The only issue I find is that Rimbaud strikes me as at times kind of wallowing in self-pity. And I think in some ways we have to bear in mind that he was, I think, 19 when he wrote this. He wrote as a teenager. He didn't really write much more after he was a teenager. So it has that adolescent residue to it. And I will certainly say that Rimbaud's teen angsty poetry, it was far greater than my teen angsty poetry. He achieves quite a bit more than I was able to achieve. But that having been said, there's still that there. There's a lot of swaying back and forth between, some extremes of despair and on the one hand and hope on the other. And the despair is, very bleak, and the hope is quite religious in some ways or spiritual. And it just seems it's hard to take either extreme seriously because he changes back and forth so often. But there are some gems in here. Like, I like just to give you a sense of how this works, I'll read a little bit of the beginning here. He says, "Once, if I remember well, my life was a feast where all hearts opened and all wines flowed." Now, this is a kid of 19 talking. I'm going to interject there. So, saying, "Once, if I remember well, my life was a feast." It's like, kid, if you remember, how far back do you have to remember anyway? But anyway, allow me to step back and let Mr. Rimbaud speak for himself. Anyway. "Once, if I remember well, my life was a feast where all hearts opened and all wines flowed. One evening I seated beauty on my knees, and I found her bitter, and I cursed her. I armed myself against justice. I fled. O witches, O misery, O hate, to you has my treasure been entrusted. I contrived to purge my mind of all human hope. On all joy, to strangle it, I pounced with the stealth of a wild beast." So that gives you a sense. Oh, there's a couple other lines here too I want to read, actually. "I called to the plagues to smother me in blood and sand. Misfortune was my god. I laid myself down in the mud. I dried myself in the air of crime. I played sly tricks on madness." I don't know what it means to play a sly trick on madness, but I like the idea. One last line I'm going to read here, because I just think it's kind of nifty, if I can find it. Can I find it? Oh yeah, this is my favorite line probably. "What an old maid I am getting to be, lacking the courage to be in love with death." I like it. And again, written by a kid who was 19, little snotty nosed brat. But maybe I shouldn't judge him too harshly. He did actually have a really rough life. And lots of violence and trauma involved. And probably no small amount of madness, too. And so, Rimbaud, all is forgiven for your little adolescent eccentricities and kind of self-pity. We've all been there. Come here, Rimbaud. Come here. I shan't give you any more troubles. Until next week. Farewell.